March 21st, 2023. It's 6:05 p.m. City of Somerton work session. We're just gonna do roll call and skip the other formalities. So,
Mayor Gerardo Anaya,
present.
Vice Mayor Jesus Roldan,
Present.
Councilmember Miguel Villalpando, Councilmember Luis Galindo,
Present.
Councilmember Marta Gonzalez,
Present.
Councilmember Juan Castillo,
Present.
Councilmember Lorena Delgadillo.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The first presentation is presentation related to potential development on 851 West Main Street.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The item before you on the agenda is a presentation that staff has prepared to share with you some potential uses, some potential opportunities the city has to develop the property that is owned by the city, 851 West Main Street. This is the vacant lot adjacent to the community center on the southeast corner of Cesar, Chavez and Main Street. So the city owns this property. It was originally acquired with the vision to develop additional parking or potentially expand the community center into that location. These are some of the options that have been discussed so far. But now that the community shelter / center has been designated to be built somewhere else, it once again opens the opportunities. What can be done with this property that the city owns? It's approximately 7,000 square feet in size, a little bit over that actually. And with that being said, staff has prepared a couple of options for your consideration, and hopefully you can give us direction as to which one you like more, give us feedback, and we'll go from there. So the first option that you see here, can you zoom out a little bit, Andrea? So this is option one. This is the leave as is option. Exactly what it sounds like. Just leave the property as land banking it for the future, because the city does own that entire block from Cesar Chavez to, would it be Union? Correct me if I'm mistaken. Carlisle? Congress, my mistake. So nevertheless, it's a big city block. It's actually, it constitutes the largest chunk of city-owned land other than the land that the city owns at Parkview and north of Parkview. So it's a good opportunity for future redevelopment of that entire block. Controlling the block, the entire block, is very crucial to what goes in there if we were to ever redevelop. And with the first option of leaving it as is, it really just leaves it prime for that clean slate. Some of the pros to that are it's the lowest cost to the city because there's no cost to do anything other than, maintenance on it, making dust control. And the biggest con though to this option is that it's aesthetically deficient at a very important city intersection. The city's growing, the city's developing to the west. We're bringing in quality new development. And this intersection is one of the most important in the city of Somerton. So one would think that this intersection, especially a city-owned property, should be leading by example. That's the biggest con that staff sees in this option. Any questions as to option one? Option two.
Excuse me, Saul, real quick. Mayor and Council, and in option one too, the other thing would be, just to add a little bit to that, would be an overflow parking, put milling, minimal maintenance and use, and it could potentially be used when we have events at the community center or at the pool. So it could be kind of an overflow for that purpose too, with minimal improvements.
Yes, thank you, Louis. And then option two, Mayor and Council, is a little bit more of a transformational option because it's a redevelopment of the parking lot and redevelopment of the existing parking lot at the community center and expanding that parking lot to include the other city property. This option results in approximately 30 new parking spaces that would be available for parking for events at the community center, but also for parking for downtown events, the Tamale Festival, the Corn Festival, and also for public parking potentially to whenever there's no room in downtown. And for on-street parking, this could be a relief parking lot. There's also the possibility to host events such as farmers markets on this city lot, community yard sales. So there's a lot of potential uses and benefits to doing something like this. And again, it's relatively low cost because we wouldn't be building a building, but it would just be surface improvements along with landscaping on Cesar Chavez Avenue and Main Street, going back to that beautification, crucial intersection, aesthetic opportunity that we have, aesthetic improvement. There's also on this rendering, on the corner, there's a white monument sign that I don't know if you can see that. But it's been discussed also for the possibility of having a welcome to Somerton sign, electronic welcome to Somerton sign. So that could be the centerpiece of this redevelopment. Brand new parking lot with the welcome to Somerton sign, new landscaping, and it just ties it all together, that option. And going back to the other point, that control of the city block, maybe there's redevelopment that comes in the future. Something like this, having a parking lot could be used by any future development. Or if it has to be torn down, then it's just a parking lot. It's not tearing down a building. So it still leaves the door open for future development, this option, while beautifying the intersection, while opening room for further possibility. And the only con that we see to this versus the first option is the cost to improve the parking lot. But that is, if staff had to pick one, that would be staff's preferred option. Any questions on option number 2?
What's the ballpark figure on the cost of the parking lot?
You know, Councilmember Castillo, the costs are fluctuating every day. That's just the world that we live in. That's how the market is. And I would have to go back and look into that for you before I give you an estimate. But we should have some readily available data from other projects that we have going on that we could probably put together something rather quickly.
I would say about 200,000. About that.
200?
Yeah. My unscientific engineering estimate. 30% plus or minus.
So I can look into that.
You said option 2 would be the city's preferred, right?
Well, that would be
Staff.
staff's preferred option, yes. I just see option 2 as an opportunity to, it's a relatively low cost option to beautify that corner, to provide landscaping, and then also leaves the door open for future development. If something, for example, I'm talking years down the road, everything that is on this city block has been transferred over to Parkview, and now there's a hotel coming at that city block. That parking lot could be incorporated to as part of that hotel, or any future potential development for that matter. Or if it doesn't work, it could be torn out and rebuilt. And to take out a parking lot's a lot easier than to take out a building. So you maintain that control of the city block, and also you leave the door open for future development. I'd like to show you option 3 because this has been discussed as well. Option 3 would be to open up the possibility for commercial development on the property. At some point, there was talk of economic development uses for this property, and that would be done through the opening of an RFP process for this lot and accepting proposals for development. But because of the size of the property, any substantial commercial development such as what's shown here, this is a 4,500 square foot building. If that's 4,500 square feet of, say, restaurant use, which is about the size of a Denny's, the parking is going to be the biggest challenge there, because there's just no realistic way of getting the minimum parking needs without using the parking lot next door. So it would have to be some kind of shared parking agreement, which may or may not work. We would have to do more research on that. But this is what that would look like, more or less. A commercial building in the front. Maybe we could still put that monument sign there if that's something that would like to be continued. But it would need more than likely need a driveway off of Cesar into Cesar Chavez Avenue, or share a driveway access with the lot next door. So it would be a shared, not shared parking, but at least shared entrance into the parking lot at the community center. Some of the pros to this, of course, is the tax revenue for any commercial uses that were to come, new services, new amenities, and all the investment would be from the private sector, so there would be no cost to the city. But in my opinion, the biggest con to this option is that the city would relinquish control of that entire block. And that is, as I mentioned, that is the biggest asset the city has, that entire block for future development, other than that what we have right now at Parkview and north of Parkview. Any questions on option number 3?
And if a Denny's or say a sports bar or something comes in there, we wouldn't have enough parking as required by, an average size restaurant / whatever. So-
Well, Mayor, if it's a casual dining like Denny's, for example, the amount of parking spaces for that, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say it's going to be at least 40 to 50, maybe 60 parking spaces. And as shown here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's just, it's unfeasible, really. The amount of parking that you can get in the back really limits the size of the building, maybe to 2,000 square feet. But then again, what is out there that can work with 2,000 square feet? What tenants, what retailers, what restaurants are looking for a 2,000 square foot? It's difficult. That is the biggest challenge. But if we were to share the parking lot with the community center, then it becomes feasible at that point. But then that also, that parking space in the community center sometimes can get crowded as is. But it would be doable, but we would have to definitely explore the impact of something like that.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, really tonight was really just kind of give you a couple ideas that we have in mind of options that we'd like mayor and council to, provide some direction and see what, get into more details. Just want to share that if we do renovate into a parking lot, that would qualify for ARPA with the purchase of the land and the development of the parking lot. So that would be an option. We can look at those fundings if possible. And also even with the milling and having like an overflow parking, that I believe would also be under ARPA. So that land would be covered by the funding, the purchasing. So that is an option. If we go with retail, then of course that wouldn't fall under that category, and we'd have to look at the purchase, the use of the land differently, I should say. So just wanted to share that with you.
So as Louis mentioned, we're simply trying to get some feedback from what your thoughts are on the property, and which direction, if any, you'd like to give us on how to proceed with this.
See 3 options and see the pros and the cons of each. So
Yeah.
at least at least for me, I would like to keep my options open. There was, when we were discussing the expansion, there was talk about retail, so there's, but then again, we just gotta make sure that we explore something, the ideal thing that we would want. I know that there's been some investors that have looked at this property and see if it's feasible, but that's one of the reasons that the gym wasn't expanded here, because there was concerns about the parking as it is when there's events there, because one of its primary uses is event center, and we don't have enough parking for an event center. So the that will take care of that. But then again, we also know that there's been people coming in. There's not enough lots here too. So I think there's possibilities with each.
And Mayor and Council, staff, when we discuss this item, we have Parkview Commerce coming in, so there's several lots out there available. We're looking at this as a more of a long-term type of planning. Again, to have property, control of property on Main Street, and you as a mayor and council able to decide who would you like to be in there? Would it be another grocery store, another a hotel, a big department store, anything that would bring tax revenues to the city? That's what we kind of had in mind, or at least one of my thoughts is sharing with the group. We have a lot going on at the Commerce Center. If this parking lot would coming through, we're looking at potentially 5 to 10 years doing something, because we still, if we want to move these facilities to Parkview, it's going to take us some time. The pool, the ball field, those things, unless we get funding somewhere else. And of course, the pool, we're looking at something bigger that we can work with the high school. Of course, the shelter and facility space. So we're kind of looking at how this would benefit Somerton in the future. And having control of what I would consider prime property is always a good thing, and making sure that you're flexible with what you want to put there. The other option, I mean, if a commercial is something, maybe something where it's not that big of an investment, where it could actually still be controlled under the city, and then demoed later if a bigger project arises. But again, that's something that we'd have to plan out. And so we look for your direction on these viable projects.
Well, Mayor,
Yes.
I think for me, I mean, thank you for having these three options. But I think, I mean, for me, just looking at this, I mean, I think that is, a excellent location. I think I would like for us to have, kind of have a say on who comes in and who's not. Like, for example, if it's a Denny's, I'm willing to listen to that option, and especially when we can agree on a shared parking agreement, with I think something can be worked out. I think it's gonna retail. I like the retail. It'll bring revenue to us, but I also want to make sure that it's something that's going to be relevant to us here as a city.
Something that's worth it.
Right. But I think, exploring those options just to see what's out there. I mean, I think it's good, but I like option 3, but making sure that whatever retail does come in here, that it's something that's going to benefit the city, something that's, that our residents are going to be like, wow, this is what we want. This is, at least that's my take on that. I mean, I understand the parking too, but I think if something aligns well, I'm okay with that.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Roughly, this one's the one on the slide over there is bigger.
This one, they're planning to do retail on the bottom and houses on the top.
It's a mixed use. Mhm.
And I know the parking on Main Street ends on Union or something on that end. And we extended all the way to. That will,
Are you, Councilmember, are you referring to on-street parking, actual on-street parking?
well, on street and like we have right now, there's some market. Our town is parking lot.
You know, I believe there was a study done on that to see if that was feasible to have on-street parking beyond. And I don't really know why it was stopped there. Maybe someone here.
I think because there was hardly any commercial. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. There was nothing. Yeah, what we wanted was to on-street parking on the commercial area. That's why this was shifted, but I don't think there was any sort of study to shift that.
So, sorry.
And also, like Louis said, it's something in the future because once we build the other center, what are we gonna do with this thing? Parking lot or?
And Councilman, again, I think the new kid on the park is going to be Parkview because of proximity to the high school. I think we're going to see a lot of investment, a lot of growth and development around that area. So it would give us an opportunity to later on get this other property ready. But again, we wanted to provide you options. We want to, it's a long range plan. I don't think we'd have to review it.
One thing, seeing this option and the parking lot option, it's almost the same footprint. So maybe what we could do is do this paved area and maybe leave like a pad, and that can be like an overflow parking. In the meantime, if something comes up, at least we have the permanent parking, because it seems that at least in both options, there's this paved area and the other area can be just overflow and just leave it as a pad and because we have the landscaping, we have a different access, but I think this access is probably more, it's probably better. We have it right in, right out on Main Street and maybe start exploring the other area opposite for parking too. And
Okay.
but
So Mayor, just to make sure I understand correctly, you're saying to develop most of the parking lot, but leave a building pad in case something, as Councilmember Castillo mentioned, something that benefits the community comes along.
yeah, and that
The
can
pad
serve
is
as a
there.
overflow parking too.
Okay.
With millings.
Oh, but so improve it with millings,
Well, no, the
And leave
parking
the-
lot would be paved
fully improved. Okay.
because it serves both options and then just in where you're showing the building have it.
Oh, the pad itself would
have
be
a-
millings.
Millings,
I
just
see.
overflow.
Okay, no, I think that's a very, very sensible approach. Covers all the points that it seems the council wants to achieve.
And gives us the flexibility.
Yes.
Yes, that would give us flexibility. And I think one of the important parts is that you're flexible to be able to, if the opportunity arises, a good opportunity that you're not, the mayor and council don't have their hands tied about a little section. Because that's usually what happens is there's a little corner, it's always the problem, and that's what we don't want here. So.
And then another council's gonna come, why do you have dirt there? Let's pave it. So that's on them.
Well, they'll look at our minutes and see our thought process.
So Mayor, if you like, we can continue looking at those options, get some better numbers, and then come back and give you an update.
I was
Unless there's any
just gonna say that I think that's gonna be a good idea because since we remember parking lot has always been an issue in that,
Yes.
especially when events are going on wedding quinceañera. Now that you have AC units on those, now it's gonna get rented through the summer. So now you have more need of parking lessons. So yeah, I think that idea of paving part of it and the other one with millings, that'll help out, alleviate the parking lot from that.
I agree. Yes, it's gonna get, and summer's coming up too, so. And I'm not sure, this is gonna be the first summer with the new AC system, but
Yeah.
that's when we're really gonna be able to tell the impact of the upgrade.
So if you like, Mayor, we can look at those options for all of you and come back and provide an update. We'll get some better numbers and look at that option, but also look at the other options with some of the questions you had and provide an update. Like I said, this is there's different fundings that we can be used, and we can also come back and let you know how this would impact the budget or the other funding sources that we have available to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Item number 2, presentation of photovoltaics, upgrade and discussion of possible project.
Mayor, Council, we have Luke Alm from Solon Corporation. And Luke was here several years ago, I want to say, looking at what we could do with our solar. So I reached out and he's back and hopefully opportunity for the city. So Luke.
All right, thank you, Louis. Mayor, council members, good afternoon. Y buenas tardes. Muy feliz de estar aquí con ustedes al servicio. Like Louis said, I'm Luke with Solon. I've been with Solon a little bit over 10 years and have been working on this project for, I don't know, maybe about 5 years now. We've been looking at different options on what can be done to improve the solar savings and the solar solutions that you guys have in place already. Part of that started with APS. I'm reaching out to see if there was anything we could do to help there. So I believe you guys have this presentation. I'll just give you a quick couple-minute overview of Solon and who we are. If many of you guys have probably been at the Arizona Cities and Leagues Council and conferences and have probably seen either myself or the Solon booth there. I'm always giving away the little solar flashlights. If you see me there next time, make sure to stop by and grab some of those. They're just for fun. We do a lot of these projects here in Arizona with utilities and municipalities. We've done projects near and far, over 125 of these projects just within the last 5 years alone. Here are a few example customers. You guys are welcome to reach out to any of those. I believe Louis has already. Some of the projects closest by are listed here. Actually, we have Yuma County, just right up the street. They've done 6 projects with Solon, and then of course the city of Yuma, which Vice Mayor, I believe you're probably familiar with, at least, right?
County.
And enjoying that covered parking right there at City Hall. What you'll notice is a concurrent theme of a lot of these customers continuing to do more and more solar projects. As the numbers increase, they start off with 1 or 2 or 4, and pretty soon that can end up going all the way up to 48 projects or more, like at the city of Tucson. And that's because the savings that we promise are there, the installations are quality, and the projects go as expected. So I'm gonna pause there, and we're gonna get into the most fun part, which is your guys' projects and what's going on there. But I want to make sure that in the brief amount of time that we have together, I'm covering any and all questions that you may have.
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, great. Well, happy to make this a discussion as we're going through this. As any questions come up or comments, make sure to just throw those out there. So basically, out of the 4 solar projects that the city has currently, one of the projects is doing fantastic. It's the fixed solar covered parking over at the senior center, and that one's doing well. Utilities incentives that are being received and utility bill savings as well. The main focus of today are 3 sites that we'll say need a little bit of attention. And that's basically because they're just not working. parts aren't available. We've looked for years for parts. We've tried to fix them or look at options to upgrade them. And the reality is they don't make the parts anymore. Even if they did, there's nobody around that knows how to service these type of panels. Software is old and outdated, lost. We're not even sure exactly where the software is and if that could even be getting going. So we've been working with APS to come up with a solution to get you guys the utility incentives that were originally promised by APS, upgrade the systems, and get you guys some of the savings that were coming back there. So long story short, I'm not going to go into there, but those are the 3 sites that need to be upgraded: wastewater, public safety, and public works. So the recommendations that we're bringing forward to you guys today are to evaluate upgrading these systems. And then we're looking for your direction on what you guys would like to do and what you guys believe is the best path forward. So really the advice is to update the solar systems to a current proven technology. Solar canopies that are fixed in place with common technology that's proven, has 10-year and 25-year warranties on all of the components. We design those solar upgrades to maximize your incentives and your utility bill savings. So there's 2 parts to that. One is your utility incentives that APS promised, and then the second part of that is your utility savings. So we design the system and size that's going to maximize those savings. Then with this upgrade, there would be the potential to eliminate the wasted space that are currently in place with the solar panels. So we can put in place tall clearance canopies that could be used to protect the city equipment from sun damage and for other uses there. So those tall clearance canopies are typically 13 foot 6 inches clearance height. You can park garbage trucks, utility vehicles, RVs, semi trucks, whatever need to be parked underneath those. So in the layouts that I believe you guys have seen, and I'm going to show you guys, all of those are anticipated to be tall clearance canopies where you're not losing out on any of the space underneath those. They can still be utilized and they still produce savings. The other item is to change the scope of the agreement so that you guys can take advantage of a solar services agreement. You'll often hear this referred to as an SSA, solar service agreement, or often a PPA, power purchase agreement.
No,
In this, we can, go ahead.
no, we don't want
Yeah, okay.
the buying. We did that already.
All right. In an SSA, that incorporates the new Inflation Reduction Act incentives. We can incorporate those to increase savings. Now, this is a special program from the Arizona Corporation Commission that is only allowed for municipalities and nonprofits. And that's because in this type of agreement, the city doesn't have to put out any money at all to upgrade these solar systems. It's $0 out of pocket. Someone would pay for all of it. The city would agree to only purchase the solar power that's produced and only the solar power that's produced. So for example, if Solon came in, upgraded the solar systems, and the solar panels were facing the ground, or they fell down, they didn't work, or whatever happened, literally the city would be paying $0 if there was any solar production at all. So these agreements are a lot of fun because they're truly aligning our incentives and our requirements to be in aligned. We want to build the best system possible to save you guys as much money as possible. And also that's how we get paid back for construction. If the solar systems don't produce as promised, we don't get paid back for production because the city only pays for the actual solar kilowatt hour production.
Does the SSA take advantage of the incentives from APS, or this is totally, we leave the incentives, we lose them and then, or how does that work?
Mayor, good question. So in this scenario, we would want to make sure that those incentives are captured from APS. We've confirmed with APS that we can upgrade the systems and that those incentives would still be paid out to the city. So just a quick recap on how those incentives work. They're called PBIs, or production-based incentives. And what happens is the utility, APS in this circumstance, pays the city per solar kilowatt hour produced. They pay you an incentive for each solar kilowatt hour produced. However, the current solar systems aren't producing, haven't been producing any amount of solar energy for quite a while now. So no incentives are being received. The new systems, when they're upgraded, APS would start to pay out again the solar incentives per kilowatt hour. And that's how we would maintain the incentives from APS and help pay for these systems. On top of that, we can put into the agreement that Solon would remove all of the broken solar equipment and make room for the new upgraded solar panels. So kind of killing two birds there with one stone. Now, these solar layouts, I just want to hinge, these are indicative. These are layouts we've been on site and we've looked and layouts similar to this totally feasible. However, based on city staff and your recommendations, these layouts can be tweaked a little bit. These solar panels can be moved around, but this is approximately the size that is needed. Well, exactly the size that is needed for these sites to maximize those two items, maximize utility incentives and maximize utility savings on your utility bills. So the T is for tall clearance, which means the canopies would be a tall clearance. You could park equipment underneath them. Public safety, same concept there. Be able to park vehicles or storage, maybe other expensive public safety equipment could be stored underneath there. And then Public Works 8. This is the site where we have to get the most creative due to space constraints and limitations. These panels would also be fixed and raised up so tall clearance vehicles can fit underneath the solar panels there. So in this scenario, we're able to lock in the solar kilowatt hour pricing for the next 28 years. So as utility rates increase, whatever the case may be, as inflation comes, the solar price per kilowatt hour is locked in. You'll notice that on the very left-hand column, the 10.67 cents. Now there's a lot of numbers here, but the main thing to focus on, and I'm happy to walk you through these, is the savings column. In the first year, the savings would be over $84,000. As the utility incentives decrease, your savings will also slightly decrease until utility rates catch up. Total term savings, the bottom green cell there, the total would be right around $639,000 in savings.
In 28 years?
Over 28 years, correct. So this is a fantastic option because the city would not only be able to clean out the equipment that's not working, but they'd be able to get covered parking and or tall clearance structures, be able to get that use of that space back, protect city equipment. And on top of that, there would be savings.
And Mayor and Council, currently, the only savings we are, correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, the only savings that we are receiving are from the senior center. The
Correct.
senior center, right?
So you mentioned something about zero upfront cost for the city for the first 20 years, 28, and what up?
Correct. So the zero upfront cost is the city would pay $0 for the construction, for the removal, for all of those items. After the system is built and generating solar power, then the city would start to pay per kilowatt hour solar is generated. And only for the kilowatt hours that the solar is generated. There's no other cost associated with these agreements.
Luke,
Yeah. So in this chart here, I'm just going to walk you through the columns real quick, and this should explain that. You have your SSA pricing. That's your price per solar kilowatt hour. The next column is your solar kilowatt hours. So that's how many kilowatt hours the solar system is going to produce. On top of that, included in an SSA is a production guarantee, where we actually guarantee that the system is going to produce what we say it will, or we have to make up for your lost savings if it doesn't produce as we promise. Your utility bill without solar, that's how much you guys are currently paying. Your utility bill after solar will drop down to $81,000. That's how much your solar bill will be after the solar is installed. Your solar bill would be $246,000, and that's as simple as taking the solar kilowatt hours multiplying that times the SSA price, adding in sales tax, which can also be a revenue for the city as far as sales tax collection goes, depending on the intricacies there. The PBI incentives are the APS incentives that are received from the utility. And when you add those up, that's where you come up with your savings.
So is this kilowatts, the 2,084,725, is that how much we typically produce within that year? Is that gonna cover all the usage, or are we gonna be short and then have to, where would we pay that difference, or to who?
So the way that we've maximized your incentives and your utility savings is by building these solar systems, excuse me, to produce approximately 93 to 92% of your needed electricity on an annual basis.
Mhm.
So you're still going to be producing about 8% of your electricity from the utility on an annual basis. Now, a lot of times we like to maximize that. Oh, thank you, sir. A lot of times we like to maximize that at 100% because the solar power is cheaper, but we like to leave you guys a little buffer, right? Although we might find some more efficient air conditioners or LED lighting, and that gives the city a buffer in order to reduce usage.
So is this savings just for the system, or does that include the what's estimated to be the total bill for the city, whatever the system produces and whatever we're gonna have to pay APS on?
Correct. Yeah, so your utility bill after solar, that would be your new APS bill. Then you would have your solar bill. You add those together to get your total, we'll call it utility bill. Then you would get your utility incentives, the $150,000 in utility incentives, because we can get the systems up and running, start generating the solar power. Those incentives will start to flow into the city again. We'll receive $150,000 in incentives. And that's part of the savings that gets us to the savings of $84,000.
Luke, I think, one of the, if you can clarify a little bit more is, what the city's paying, what we're gonna pay Solon, and what's the savings, I guess. If you can.
And the savings do stop after year 10, right? The incentives, I'm sorry?
Correct. Those incentives do expire with APS. So to answer Lou's question, right now you guys are paying $262,000 to APS. After the solar is upgraded, your APS bill will be $81,000. Your solar bill will be $246,000. You will receive incentives from APS of $150,000. So your new total electric bill, including your APS bill and your new solar bill, minus the incentives, will be $177,000. Now, the $84,000 in savings comes from subtracting your total electric bill, the $177,000, from what you guys are currently paying, which is the $262,000. So $262,000 minus the $177,000, which will be what your new utility expense will be. And that's where we come up with the $84,000 in incentives. Hopefully that's clear as mud.
So, and so what you're saying is that if at any point, the solar is not producing the guaranteed kilowatt usage that's here, your company would pay the difference or make up the difference?
Correct. Yep. So in the solar services agreement, there's a production guarantee that we sign up for. And if the systems do not produce as promised, then we actually have to pay the city for the lost savings.
And what would happen, let's just say hypothetically speaking, your company goes bankrupt? Where would that leave us? I mean, I'm not saying that it's gonna happen, but
Yeah.
just.
It's happened.
It
before.
happened.
I mean, at some point, there was,
green bolts, that's why.
yeah, so just, what would happen to all of the, what would,
So the nice thing about this agreement is the city only pays for the solar power that's generated. You don't have a fixed payment for construction. You haven't paid out any money. So hypothetically, worst case scenario, let's say someone goes bankrupt. Your utility bill's not, your Solon bill's not coming in. Then yeah, you just wouldn't have a solar bill at that point, and you would have to hire somebody else to do the operations and maintenance of the system.
That first column, the solar SSA pricing, 0.1, is that per kilowatt?
Correct, per kilowatt hour.
What's the current price from APS for per kilowatt?
So it varies per rate plan. And it depends on how much electricity the site is using in that month and in that year.
So do we know on average what we're paying per kilowatt as a city?
Yeah. Let's see here. That would be. Let's do my handy dandy calculator here real quick. So depending on the rate plan and the time of season, the city pays between 11 and 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Plus demand charges and other fees that get factored into that bill. So because the solar pricing is plus the incentives is instantly cheaper, that's how the city can enter into an agreement like this with $0 upfront and start saving money instantly.
So it's approximately the same amount, but the incentives are what saving the city money. At least it's
Correct.
Because we're not getting any right now, right?
Exactly, yeah. And the longer the city waits, those incentives expire. So the quicker the city was able to start recuperating those incentives, the higher the savings would be.
And Luke, I think one of the questions is after 28 years, do we renew or what happens then? Just
Yeah,
curious.
so 3 options. So in the solar services agreement, the city can purchase the solar equipment at any point in time. At year 28, you could also purchase the solar system at a reduced rate. If the city decides not to renew or renegotiate a rate, then Solon would be obligated to come and remove all of the solar equipment and restore the site to how it was previously at our cost.
So you're bringing the green stuff back? No,
Yeah.
a question on it. So you talk about, the utility bill after solar and also, the APS bill. Why APS if we're gonna be with the solar? Do we still have, or why do we still have to pay APS for that? It's gonna be enough energy generated to cover that, or?
Yes. So 92% of your needed electricity will come from the solar. 8% will come from APS. Now you'll notice that your APS bill doesn't go down proportionally, right? It's still a decently sized APS bill.
Mm.
And that's because the utility has a lot of fixed fees that the solar can't reduce. It's important that those are calculated correctly so that we present you with an accurate savings analysis. So yes, you will still be connected to the grid, and APS will still be providing a limited amount of power to these facilities. A lot of the things that the municipalities love with these projects is you guys are able to monitor the solar performance from anywhere there is web activity. A lot of times this is a display of an actual customer here. Actually, this is the City of Mesa project. And you guys can take a monitor and put that in the lobby, and it can show in real time exactly how your solar system is performing and how much energy it's producing. And of course, that's all monitored by Solon. All of the operations and maintenance is all included. We take care of all of that to make sure that we're hitting our production guarantees. One of the ways that we're able to maximize savings is because the city can take advantage of a strategic alliance for volume expenditures. And that's through RFP pricing that was done through City of Tucson and others. And we would be obligated to offer that same RFP pricing to the city. There's additional information on that if you guys have any questions on that. But really, we're looking for direction from mayor and council as to what you guys would like to do. And if you guys would like to pursue this further, next steps would be we would put together additional analysis and finalize the solar layouts so that those work best for the city and bring the back and a final agreement and savings analysis for mayor and council.
Well, at least for me, I think with this solar, it's just hard because what we went through. But at least I feel more comfortable. A recommendation coming from staff. Seeing all these numbers and everything, it's overwhelming. I understand it kind of, but either staff or having an independent person looking at it, because at least for me that more comfort for me at least. I know staff is working on the budget, but we can get an independent person looking at it and then getting with staff, giving us a recommendation, because it's I see the numbers, I see everything, but at least I don't feel comfortable moving forward without having an additional set of eyes looking at this information and actually looking at cross-referencing current APS and this. Is it just a model, or looking at a realistic, what have we been paying the last 2 years, and with this model incorporating it and see if it, and how much are we paying for the current system that doesn't work, and how that looks for the city. It just at least because this model, the first 10 years with the incentives, but after that it seems that and of course this company needs to make their money. That's what's 28-year lease or whatever it is. So but yeah, at least for me, I feel more comfortable having a different set of eyes looking at it and giving a recommendation, because we're not accountants here or financial analysts. So I'll give the rest of council to chime in.
Same as mayor, and also, can you guys pay the loan with green bulbs we have? And then I will agree, I'll sign right now if you guys pay the loan that we have with green bulbs, that we.
And Mayor, if I may, we can definitely look at that and review those. Like I said, there's a lot of information, but we wanted to start the conversation. Those PBIs, those incentives, we need to kind of make those decisions, because pretty soon they're not even going to be available. And that doesn't mean we rush the decision, but we looking at those different options. So we can look at it. We can follow up with the other municipalities. Just that I think, it all depends on the electrical use and the PBIs they've agreed upon. But we can definitely follow up with other sources. And I think Luke has always mentioned, hey, go ask around. We have no issue. We stand by what we're trying to do. So we can definitely do that and come back with some information for you.
Makes sense for us. Being that right now, we're we got a similar presentation a couple of years back. The outcome is that think it makes sense for it to do something like this, take advantage of it. So that it's, water.
And this is an option where if the city would like to do solar that's mounted directly on the ground instead of raising it up on steel carports, we can increase the savings even further, but you would just lose the shaded parking and that space on the ground. But if the priority of council is to maximize savings, then I put this in there as an example that this is the exact same project, just the only difference is the wastewater plant solar would be on the ground. All others would be parking canopies, and this would be your savings. There'd be over $100,000 of savings in the first year and over $1 million of term savings. And we can do a hybrid approach on that.
And why is it per kilowatt hour less than at the water plant?
Good question. So in this scenario, if we put, and you'll see here, oh boy. So this is solar that's mounted just directly on the ground. It's a couple feet off the ground, and it's much less expensive to install. It's mounted just right on the ground, and there's no big steel carport. It's not mounted 13 feet in the air. And because it's much less expensive to install, the solar rate per kilowatt hour is much less. And because of that, there's much more savings for the city.
And your per kilowatt hour on all the systems, would it be fixed throughout the 28 years?
Correct. Yep, fixed for the 28 years. In either scenario.
I think that's a big problem.
And not buying it.
So people not having to buy the.
I'm not buying anything. man.
And just to let you know that, and I don't know if Luke can mention this, but if one of the directions from council would to, if Solon installed these, they would take care of all the maintenance, all the upkeep. We would basically, like he mentioned in his presentation, it's a turnkey type of thing. So we wouldn't have to worry about the maintenance costs throughout the years also. That would be solely on them.
Since 2006. I've been with Solon a little bit over 10 years.
Again, and we can reach out. He's gave us plenty of references. So we can reach out to those cities and groups and ask for some feedback also.
Yeah, I think my concern is the model. Reanalyze the model, make sure that what's being shown, what we're paying per kilowatt hour, it is, and every, just make sure that we cross everything out before we move forward.
And Solon has worked with APS, and we could definitely reach out to APS and see where they can assist us with that.
What's his name? Bart? He was the one that sold us this. Well, it works for APS, so
Oh,
Please
okay,
let
maybe
them
we
know.
want.
remember. It's Bart.
Okay, that wasn't a good thing to say, Mayor.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
it
so
was-
I don't trust.
It was 2012, but it seems it was yesterday. How, Carmen? 2012.
We'll look at other options, Mayor.
Some other name.
Anyone except Bart.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. This program would take advantage of the infrastructure, the Inflation Reduction Act incentives that are available. Yeah.
So Mayor, Council, if you have no other questions, we'll go ahead and continue to get some more information and bring that back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
7:04, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. Let's have a 5-minute bio break and then reconvene.